11-year NFL veteran, ESPN college football analyst, first-round pick of the Jets. Does some pre- and post-game now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also played for Jon Gruden, so we'll get some thoughts on that as well, his return to the sidelines. Anthony Becht right here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, my man? How you been?
Hey, Mike. What's up, man? Happy New Year.
Same to you. Man, crazy the weather. They're talking about some sort of we had the blizzard apocalypto this weekend. Now everything is closed down with some ice storm that's coming for about 4 hours here. You got it good where you are, man.
You know, it got into the upper 50s a couple days ago, man, and we about shut Florida down. So, yeah, we warmed up today. We finally got up into the 70s again. But, yeah, man, it looks like the country in general is just kind of freezing over as we speak.
Woo. Tonight, though, should be heated up. SEC Championship game. I know I heard I got in a car on whatever day it was, New Year's Eve, and I heard you doing the Notre Dame game here on the air. So I know you're plugged into the college game. You got Alabama and Georgia. Both teams lost to Auburn as the blemishes here. So Georgia got blown out in that game. Bama lost 26-14. But when you look at this particular matchup at this time of the year, you lean one. Which team overall do you think has more talent in a game like this?
You know, I think honestly that the team is equal. I mean, there's a lot of NFL talent that's going to be on the field for both football teams. It's going to come down really to the important positions on the football field. That's the quarterback position. You know, two young players that really play above where they are in their young careers. Jalen Hurts, obviously, with the experience coming back, understanding what it took, and I mean, you know, he was basically down to a drive last year to potentially bringing that team to a national championship, a back-to-back national championship, and fell short. And you know, just his ability this year to, you know, not only make plays when they're needed, but he doesn't make the mistakes. And I think that's the biggest thing when you have a young quarterback that has a lot of talent around him. How many mistakes do you make a game that puts your team at risk? And you look at both of these guys, even I thought he was the X factor last game versus Oklahoma. You know, not too many people were talking about him as far as what he brought to the table. It was all about the running game and Georgia's pound and ground. And listen, that's well documented. Those 2-3 running backs that they have, I mean, they're all special. But, you know, he had to make some crucial throws and some third downs, some 3rd and 10s. He attacked the football field. He understood what he was seeing. You know, Jim Chaney's a friend of mine, the offensive coordinator, and he's very pro style. He's going to teach his quarterbacks everything from coverages, protections, reads. He's going to have them audible, check at the line of scrimmage. And you saw a lot of that out of the freshmen. So I was impressed by that. So really, two teams that I think are going to clash together, and it's going to be a great ball game tonight.
So you got defense in this game. Bama gives up 11.5, Georgia 13. Both teams score a lot, 37 Bama, 36 Georgia. So do you think it's an offensive matchup, or do you think this will be more of a defensive battle?
You know, I think it's going to be a mix. I think it's going to be earned, scores throughout this football game. You know, if I had to make a prediction score, I'd say it'd be, both teams will score below 30 points tonight. I just think it's going to be a great matchup. You're going to see the punters a couple times in this game, and you're going to see two teams that want to establish the run and get themselves in some situations where they're third short and, you know, they make it easy on the quarterback or potentially running those down. So, I think field position is going to be interesting in this game also, how both teams kind of feel themselves out. But, you know, eventually there'll be some explosive plays made in the game. I'd say more top-heavy in the second half than maybe the first, but definitely expecting a very physical football game by both teams.
All right, that game tonight, the coverage starts at 6:30. Do you like the playoff format, these four teams? Or do you want to see them tweak it and make some changes?
You know, it's intriguing to see what other teams, could win with the time constraint, having some time off. I mean, look, UCF, obviously, what they did was fantastic. And, they had a month to prepare for Auburn, and they knocked off a pretty good team. And people will say, well, where do they fall in the landscape of everything? And I think when you look at the big picture, we always kind of generalize. We can get the two teams down. We can get the two teams down where they need to be. But the other two teams, those are the wild cards. And I just think, 4 right now is where it should be. I think everybody wants the excitement of playing games and they want the playoffs. But, Listen, I think we got it right. These are the two best teams in football, arguably. But, I kind of expect this to kind of play the system to stay in place for a while. At least till what? Is it 20? I believe it's 2024 when the next contract is. So it's going to be around for quite a bit before we see any changes overall.
All right. Anthony played in the NFL, first-round pick of the Jets. Also, you played for Gruden down there in Tampa, right? He's going to return to the sideline here. So tell us what it was like playing for Jon, and whether or not you think he'll be able to make the adjustments. He's been off the sidelines for a long time.
He has. Is he worth $100 million? Absolutely not. But if somebody's willing to pay that, you know what? Sign me up for it. So, listen, I was never more prepared as a football player offensively than I was with Coach Gruden. He does a fantastic job of covering everything, every detail. There's nothing left, no stones left unturned with him. From my position, it was great. Now, when you're a quarterback and there's a lot of overkill, I mean, he really does have an audible, a check, something for every look that team has brought, not just that year or the year before, but the year before that. I mean, he'll go back in time and watch so many games, and he'll have everything. So it's a very elaborate process week to week. And obviously, Derek Carr is going to be challenged. This will be different. I mean, it'll be nothing like he's ever had before. And Jon's going to be hands-on on a lot of things. He'll install the offense. He'll draw the cards. I mean, he does a lot of that work himself, and he's going to be ingrained in this. So those things, those schemes, and also, people forget, he's been away for 9 years, but he's been constantly the film and the coaching staffs that have come through, everything he's breaking down to this point schematically. He's going to be on top of everything. So the personnel, obviously, that needs to be put in place to make all that goes is going to be important as well. So hopefully, it looks like they're keeping Reggie McKenzie in place, and that'll be part of the process of getting his team together. Now, with that being said, there was one, flaw of his game as far as a coach is concerned, is the relationships, the interactions with the players, the drastic change in the locker room. Just a decade ago is huge. I mean, there's not a lot of veterans. He would like to implement the older players in the locker room and things of that nature. You don't have that these days, and it's a younger roster. So, yeah, he's been able to deal with the top two players on each team when he's doing these broadcasts, and he sees what these guys are all about. But it's the other 55 guys on the football team that, have to be managed properly, have to be dealt with. He's very no-nonsense kind of, okay, this is the way it's supposed to work. Everybody buy in. Well, sometimes, it doesn't work like that for every individual player, and he'll have to understand how to grow with that and build that, and that'll be the biggest challenge. He hasn't been in the locker room for that stuff. He hasn't been around those players with that stuff. He's just seen it from the outside looking in, and that'll be important with his staff and everybody he puts together to kind of overcome those challenges. But I think it definitely puts Oakland in the mix now as far as if they can get those pieces together to make them a favorite as far as contending. I don't know how quickly, though, it'll be as a turnover it'll be as far as getting to the ultimate goal and winning a Super Bowl, because that's what you got to win when you're getting $100 million.
Sure. I mean, like you said, is he worth $100 million? No, because you look at the resume, you're saying, okay, he won that Super Bowl with Tampa. You were not on that team, but a lot of those players had been there and been so close, and he kind of closed that door for Dungy, but really was a 500 coach in Tampa. In fact, the last loss he had there, I mean, we remember it here in Philly because it got the Eagles into the playoffs, but that was a terrible loss.
Yeah. I mean, and
you on that team against the Ravens?
I was on this. No, I was the season where we were 9-3 and we ended up losing the rest of the regular season games. Still made the playoffs. I mean, he was there a year, I believe, one more year after that. So I was not there for that game. But you're right. I mean, listen, 2 division championships when I was there after the Super Bowl. One just a complete flop as far as the season wise, and he never really had a quarterback. We ran through 5 or 6 of these guys, but as far as the development and bringing players in and free agency, I mean, he kind of lacked in those departments too. I remember when I got there were several guys making a ton of money. Charlie Gardner, Stinchcomb, just plenty of players that were making money, but they weren't on the field. They couldn't play. They were injured, banged up. So just assessing that and making sure he gets that together. And, listen, and Oakland's not coming off a fantastic year themselves. I mean, yeah, they got a quarterback we all embrace, and we think he's going to take the next step. But, the offensive line just kind of let everybody down this year in the way they played. Now they're in place. They should be better. But defensively, you have the best player arguably in the NFL to start with. So those two pieces are there. It's just building it up, getting the right pieces in place so you can be successful to win.
Anthony Becht, 11-year NFL tight end, played with the Jets, Tampa, Arizona, played for a couple others, but you made the playoffs with those teams. And I want to ask, because this weekend we saw experience with Atlanta beat L.A. We saw some crazy things this weekend. And now the Eagles, who are an underdog this weekend at home against Atlanta, just how much coaching at this time of the year takes over? Because you got to imagine that most of the 53 men on both sides of the field are pretty equal, right? I mean, 53-53, both teams are going to be pretty equal. The difference maker is who's more prepared, who's better coached, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm not surprised that Atlanta's a favorite in this game. I mean, when you looked at all the teams in the playoffs prior to the games this past weekend, you just assume Atlanta was probably one of the more scarier teams because they hadn't played up to expectation this year. They've been kind of hanging around. They had all the pieces still in place from last season. Why aren't they the dominant team like they were last year, or the clear-cut team? So I just felt like once they got in, they were going to be the one that had to be dealt with. Now, so the Saints obviously are the team that may look like the hottest team coming in. But for me, this is a huge challenge. I've been a huge Eagles proponent even before the season. I thought they were the best team in the NFC, obviously, when everything was intact. Nick Foles will have his hands full in this game, and not just looking at what he's done the last couple of weeks prior to the end of the regular season, but just what he's going to be asked to do. Like you said, the talent across the board in the rosters is very close, very talented. There's no weaknesses on really any side of the football. So where does the advantage come from? It does come from the coaching, number one, and you got a guy that made it to the Super Bowl last year and went through a terrible loss to kind of learn from it. But yet the quarterback position is really night and day on both sides of the football. So, obviously being at home in front of the home fan base for the Eagles and playing this game, it's going to be an amped-up atmosphere. But, the Falcons are they're going to be able to ride through that emotion early in the game. Can the Eagles kind of jump on them early? I think the way they start, the quickness of coming on top of these guys, getting an early score, and really putting the pressure on would be the difference in this game. But if you let them hang around, one of those games where, they're down 3-3 throughout the game, you're asking for trouble when you get into the fourth quarter as far as closing the game out. So biggest key for me will be the Eagles trying to jump on these guys early.
All right. I'll ask you just over the weekend, was there something that stood out with these NFL games? Any big surprise, coaching blunders, something that you're still talking about on this Monday?
Man, I'll tell you, I'm really shocked that Andy Reid and the Chiefs weren't able to finish that game off. I mean, I'll be honest with you, sitting there, I'm like, I thought if there was one game that was going to get ugly, even prior, and then it kind of, was resonating me as I was watching it early on. I was like, man, Kansas City's got an easy game, as far as getting past. I mean, there's no game that's easy, and then as you watched it go on, and then coming out in the second half, I'm just not quite sure, how you lose that football game. I mean, you're talking about, a lead that, we've seen it before, but, there's not enough ammo, in my opinion, for the Titans to be coming back from a 21-3 game when you're at home and you got all the pieces you have in place. So, there probably won't be any changes in Kansas City, but I'd say for me that was a shocking loss.
Well, you don't think that Smith is gone?
I think Smith may want to change. I mean, I don't know if he's felt the love that he wants, and I'll tell you what, man, that he could be a very highly pressed suitor for a lot of teams that need a quarterback or at least a gap, and he gives you a better chance than anything is coming in and giving you an immediate contending opportunity. So there's plenty of teams that I think that would love to have him. It's really going to be on him and where they feel that staff. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a guy that people love and embrace and want to see, but trust me, man, he's got a long way to go as far as what it's going to take to be a quarterback in the NFL, and I think that's the nerving thing that Kansas City internally will worry about. There'll be pressures to change it up, but at the end of the day, how good can this kid be next year or the year after? It's going to take some time.
Hey, real quick on this. We're talking with Anthony Becht, 11-year NFL tight end. You played for a lot of different coaches, which means you had to change offenses and coordinators a lot. That's one thing with the Falcons that people don't realize is, they lost coordinators. They had to change offenses, and how much that contributed to them getting off to that slow start. How hard is it to learn a whole new offense in just one offseason?
I think the one thing that I know Sarkisian did was when he came in and instilled his offense, there was a lot of similarities on what these guys were doing. And I think he tried to look and see what was in place and how they can make the transition simpler. The biggest thing for me is understanding, having a feel for the quarterback position, how your players react to certain things, what works. And I think that's where the time came in, is trying to find that flow of how your quarterback, how those situational things, what everybody likes to do. And then once you start getting on that same page, can you consistently call that week to week? And I think we were starting to see that towards the end of the season with the Falcons, how they started to kind of pick up a little momentum here, and especially in the playoff game, they just looked very well keyed in, and I think that's going to be probably where the upswing happens for the Falcons and the challenges that the Eagles will have to defend against this week.
Anthony Becht, of course, the college football championship game tonight, 97.3 ESPN has it. You got anything else going on, man? It seems like you're always doing something.
I'm kind of happy I'm not doing anything right now. I get to sit down for a couple months and relax and watch everything. I'll start evaluating some of the talent coming out for the draft and kind of plug in some of the teams that I kind of talk and deal with the most. But looking forward to doing that. And obviously on the outside of just sports in general, I'm the brand ambassador, the face of the Anthony brand. You can go to Anthony.com. We got some premium men's products, skin and shave care line. Phenomenal things. We just did a great showing in Orlando. We're going to be doing some things across the country. So check it out. Use the promo code GameFace. I'll give your audience 20% off, and you can try out some of those great products, premium products, Anthony.com.
Oh, cool. All right, man. Well, he's got it all. I know. What are you still doing the Home Shopping Network stuff?
I am, yeah. We got a few shows left. We'll have a show right after the Super Bowl. We'll sell some of that gear and apparel for the team that wins. And after that, man, I'll be looking to lose some weight after the long season of eating and traveling every single weekend.
The last time you saw me, I'm not losing it. I keep gaining it, man. he walked up to me at the draft. He said, "Jesus, man, you got big." I said, "You do this job."
I'm giving you some time here the next time I come through. All right?
Doing this job, there's food everywhere. They're just giving you food. Here you go. Take food. Here you go. Have some more food.
It's so true.
All right, man. Well, we'll catch up here for the draft. Hope everything's good. Oh, by the way, Dub V, number 2, baby.
Oh, man, how about that? That's awesome, man. Hopefully we can ride it out. We got, it's coming, man. March will be here soon.
I know. All right, we'll have to hook up down in Clearwater again, pal.
You got it, man. Take care and Happy New Year, man. Thanks again.
You too. Anthony Becht, everybody.